Good morning, folks. I'm going to show y'all a neat thing that you can do with old used tires. If you got any laying around and you can't get rid of them or having a hard time getting rid of them, there's lots of things you can do with them. I made this flower pot here several years ago. And you see, you cut the ring out of it, one of the outer rings, and then you cut the little triangular V-shaped pebbles, I call them, and turn it inside out. I got one over here with my rose bushes. You can see it a little better there. And I used to raise a garden, pretty good sized garden. This is a wall I put in here a while back. The reason why I put this wall in is because if you look down here over this wall, it's straight down. And it keeps the kids from tumbling over the hill when they're riding their bikes, or they just fall down. That down through there is where I used to raise a garden. It adds up to about an acre, and I've kind of let it grow up. As you can see, all the underbrush and whatnot, and I'm just not able to tend it no more. But what I really like to show you is what I'm talking about with these old tires. I got one over here that I can show you. There's a steel ring right here, and if you don't want to flower it out, you just cut this ring out, and then you cut your V-shapes in it, and then you flip the tire inside out. But if you can't do that, just cut right here along the outer side of the cords, tread cords. Cut it all the way around, and you just got you a pot. And if you want more drainage down inside there on the bottom, just drill you some holes and it'll drain. These lower profile tires, they don't turn in easy. As a matter of fact, they're just about impossible to turn inside out at all. Like these here, these are some 20s or 22s. So you see here, what I did was just stack two of them, and then the top one I cut it out, cut the ring out around the outer edge there, and I filled the two bottom ones with rocks and this old clay dirt that I live on up here. And mix it with rocks and that clay dirt, and it packed pretty good. And there's probably about a foot of dirt, maybe a foot and a half, from some compost that I made from sawdust, and where I cut my own firewood and whatnot, and table scraps. And I built a rack for my runners and tomatoes and things that, vine. The tomatoes, I just let them grow up through the top of this rack, and I'm just going to let them lay over. These are burpees, and they're about big boy burpees, and they're probably been in there about 3 weeks. And I started them, you can see my hand, when they were about 6 inches high or so. And they're coming along pretty good. And that's the red burpee. And this one over here is a yellow burpee. they're starting to bloom. They're looking pretty good. And over here, done the same thing with this one. These three here are 20s, 20-inch tires. These are cucumbers, and I've trained them to grow up these strings, and I want them to kind of grow over the top of this and then just let them hang down the side. You can kind of train them, like you see little hairs coming off of them right there. As it gets taller, you just move him up around there where you want him to get a hold, and he will. You got to be kind of delicate with these cucumbers because they're very sensitive. They don't like to be messed with much. And you see right here, if you see where my finger's pointing, see the little string that he puts off to cling to. They do much better if you let them stick on or use some old fence wire or whatever to let him climb. They do a lot better that way than just letting them lay on the ground. I got a squash in the middle here, in the middle of this. That one there is getting plenty of light, and I believe it'll do good. It's a crook-neck yellow squash. Over here I got some beans and cucumbers. Oh, look. I got some cucumbers coming on. I'll show you here. You can see my hand down there. That one there is just about big enough to pick. It's a hybrid. There's lots of little bitties coming on. And you can see right here, there's a baby cucumber coming on. And you see where it's coming across the top here. I've trained them to, kind of coasted them to go up it. And I got some beans in there. You see I got a squash down here in the middle, right in there. You can see it there. I don't know if it's going to do any good because the beans has kind of got it shaded. But I'm hoping that as the beans, when they come in, I'll take the beans and pull the vines out and give the other stuff a chance to grow. And over here, I got some 6-week beans. Some of them are starting to bloom. You can see down in there, you can see some blooms coming on. They've been in there for probably about 5 weeks, maybe a little less. And down here in this little pot, I got some thistle. I've really been getting into these mountain herbs, wild herbs. There's a lot of medical benefits. The thistle is a detox, liver detox. Excellent wild herb, which is probably more beneficial than stuff you can buy from the pharmaceuticals. This here is my runners. I got it in, I've got a rack built around it. I'm letting them grow up, as you can see, with the strings, and just lay over the top here and then lay over the side. And over here, I don't know what kind of bean this is. I know what kind it is, but I can't remember. And I have to wait until the beans come on, so I'll know what kind of bean it is. I got some peppers in here. Again, I was hoping the beans would come on. I pull the bean vines out after I pick them, and You can see the pepper right there. Peppers do better in late summer. You start them early and give them a good root start, but they don't really start shooting up until about mid to late July. And they'll get up to 3, 4, 5 foot tall, and they'll just overload you with peppers. And down here, I put these on the ground because these are okra. Okra has a hard time getting started, but once it does, it'll take off. These have been in there for about 3, 4 weeks, and as you can see, they're only about 4 inches tall, maybe 5, and they grow pretty tall. I don't have to bend over to pick them. And I got 2 pots of them, and I got a pot of sweet potatoes. I never used to like sweet potatoes coming up, but over the last few years I've acquired a taste for them. Really like them. And I have 8 pots of regular potatoes. Couldn't hardly see growing them up in high pots. It's a lot of work cutting all those tires. But these are called kennybacks. They grow really good in this environment here in southeast Kentucky. It's the best type of potato you can grow in this environment. And you see I heap the dirt up around them when they get so tall, and it gives them more room to spread out and make more potatoes. As we call these parts taters. But I can say it properly if I want to. It's just a hell of a lot easier to say it improper. And as you see, one thing I've learned is when the growth started coming on, I got all these trees here. These underbrush that I'm going to have to cut out and let more light in. And that's the east side. I don't know, with the fog you can't see the mountain, but it's only about 200 yards over there to the side of the hill over there. And I'm on the west side over here. And as you can see, I'm right up against it. And I got a lot of underbrush that I need to take out from there. So we'll give you a whole shot of my raised garden from south to the north. Looking back there toward the house is the north. But as I said, if you got some old tires, and if you want to make good use of them rather than letting them pile up in landfills and create habitat for snakes, rats, and mosquitoes, you can put them to good use. This year, I've never tried this before. This is the first year I've tried this. I've always had it in my mind to do it, but I've got to the point where I have a real hard time bending over and getting around like I did when I was younger. So I decided to try to make it easier on myself. I love to raise things. I love gardening. This year is just an experiment, and I believe it'll do fairly well. And when I get the opportunity to cut some of this undergrowth, this shade, I believe it'll do a lot better. See, the sun, it's about 8 o'clock now, and the sun ain't rose up over the horizon over there yet. That's back toward the east. It usually don't hit here till about 11 o'clock. About 10:30, 11 o'clock this time of year. And it'll go over the sky to the west side here, and I'll get about 6 hours of direct sunlight as of now. Well, I hope you like my tour of my little garden. This is me. I'm about the prettiest thing that ever existed in these mountains. But I think my plants are pretty awesome too. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed my video.